Welcome to NVC Nintendo Voice Chat, our very special The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds Spoilercast. With me today, well, first of all, I'm your host, Jose Otero. With me today, the awesome friend from, you just came back from Japan, Greg
I did,
Miller.
where I played a lot of Link Between Worlds. That's all I did. I StreetPass pair.
Oh, lots of people there, huh?
I'd never been into the StreetPass business. Now, woo! All over. Let me tell you what.
Seriously, like Tokyo streets, how many people did you get?
Well, I did it on the train nonstop,
Oh,
and
okay.
I would fill it every time. I would get up to 10 every time I did it.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
get
awesome.
on the Yamanote line, you'll pick up StreetPass all day. All right,
Nice.
next to him, Per Schneider.
Here, how are you doing?
Good. All right.
I've been street passing for many years.
What's your total at?
Like lots.
Years?
There's
or
not enough digits
years.
for that total.
You know what? Like whenever I look at the world map, it gets really scary because you're like, I didn't know there was a country up there, and like you met people from that country. E3 is a great place.
Yeah,
for
I know.
Yeah.
Street passing, obviously.
True. Yeah.
Get 'em
Although
next
some
time.
of those countries don't have maps yet, which is really weird.
Weird,
But,
right? Yeah, that
it's
happened to me a
bizarre.
bunch of
How
times.
rude is that, man?
Yeah.
Like you spent like
Nintendo doesn't
150 bucks and
recognize
it's like,
your country.
but I live in Liechtenstein.
And finally, Brian Altano.
Thanks for having me, Jose.
Yeah,
If,
no
and
worries.
if your country doesn't have a map, I mean, you probably got way worse problems. You probably don't have water either. It's just way worse from that.
I think New Zealand doesn't have a map.
They don't have a
on it,
map?
Yeah.
Well,
New
in
Zealand?
StreetPass,
They have
according to
water.
StreetPass, some countries don't have maps, which is
Alright.
bizarre. I hope that.
But that's
would
what
get
Rand
fixed by now.
McNally recognizes as the map of the world. StreetPass.
There you go. Very nice.
Hire that man.
So we're here to talk about Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. We have all played it and finished it. I think I finished it like 2.5 times so far, which is
Damn.
crazy.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I like it a lot. I think we all do for the most part. So
yeah.
Again, your spoiler warning is right here.
In the
From this
title,
point on. It's in the title.
Spoilercast.
You got this far. Turn back now if you haven't finished this game. So let's start with just the opening, right? I mean, you begin the game as Link asleep, which has become sort of a standard thing in these games. Skyward Sword, he started the adventure also asleep. I'm not sure what even Ocarina of Time had happened as well, and then sort of the adventure begins. What do you guys think of that opening and how they sort of had the dream?
He's tired
and all
from
that?
the last Zelda game he was just in, like the
That's
day
not
before.
the same
Tired from
Link.
Nintendo.
I know.
Tired from Nintendo running this franchise into the ground.
Different Link. He just went to school and he did all these things. He came back home. He was like herding cats or something.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool because the game obviously is a throwback to A Link to the Past, and so it has to start that way with the kind of like the quiet. Like the one thing I was hoping for is that it did the rain opening too.
That was the most memorable opening.
Yeah. But like from that opening, I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very cool how it sort of begins in the bed. Gully wakes you up, and then you're kind of out and about, and very quickly, right? And
Right.
sort of hands free, hardly anyone over your shoulder saying, "Hey, Greg, go do this. You can do this." None of that,
Yeah.
which is really, really smart.
Well, that was, for me, that was the really refreshing part of it, right? You're asking what the opening felt like. For me, I tweeted about it pretty much immediately how I thought it was delightful, right? Like you jumped in and it's the Zelda colors and this beautiful palette and it's real fun. But then it's, go do things. Let's not beat you over the head with tutorials. Let's get you out there. Like we're going to change how items work. We're going to do this. This is how it's like, holy crap, this is not exactly what I expected. You know what I mean?
It's incredibly refreshing and inviting to play a Zelda game that lets you jump right into doing the Zelda things you love after years of games in the Zelda universe sort of hand-holding you through everything. I mean, like Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess, it's like hey, did you find all the goats? Before you leave, I have a couple of cats and they got lost in a windmill. And I'm like, I have a sword, I just want to go fight moblins
had a
with
sword,
it.
but
If you have a sword,
exactly, yeah.
They're like, oh, you got a sword? Well, let me teach you how it works. In this game, it's just, we mentioned in our review, 5 minutes in, you can be in the first dungeon. I mean, that's incredible.
Get your wood shield. Get your wood sword. It's like, no, let's go do it.
Yeah, no, they did a really nice job. I'd love to hear from somebody who hasn't played A Link to the Past before, because like I felt like once I got going, I kind of went back to how I explored the original game. I was kind of like on a path to replay A Link to the Past, and then I'm like, wait, I can actually mix it up and do some different things, and so that's when I said, hey, let's see if the Zora still live up in the waterfall, right?
Yeah.
Like you look at the map and it's, it initially looks almost identical to the original map, but then you're like, oh, let me see if that is still there.
Yeah,
And that was really cool.
There's sort of that saying like you can't go home again, and I think in this game you can.
You did,
and you did, and it was different and new and strange enough to sort of warrant this like both the feeling of familiarity and like expression of searching for something brand new and adventure there. Like I think they meshed that perfectly well.
I mean, since it's a Spoilercast, like, were the Zora living up there and stuff? Like, I played A Link to the Past when I bought my Game Boy SP, but it did not have that impact on me it has on so many people, so I don't remember much of it. I don't think I finished it.
Well, you were a Sega kid, too, to be fair. So
sure, no,
like,
I was a Sega kid. You want to talk about that Ghost House? Let's talk about that Ghost House.
So no, it was the basic setup was the same, right? The location of most of the dungeons. I mean, there were different things. The sanctuary, right? Like I remember after 10 years of not having played Link to the Past, I remember like the music in the sanctuary and where it was. So you go back there, you're like, oh, it's got that same music, it's got that priest in there and everything.
Yeah.
The graveyard next door, like all that stuff was just kind of burned into my mind. So it was great to revisit it and then go like, oh, I remember there was a secret. If you push one gravestone over and then boom, there is one, and then you find something completely different. And that's when it got exciting. Right?
Well, in the opening, I love that the opening does like a quick reunion tour. For people who played A Link to the Past, immediately they go, okay, well, look, so you have to deliver this sword. First of all, I love, too, that you're getting yelled at because you were late to work again. Link is a blacksmith in this game, which I don't think they've sort of had that sort of angle, like something that he sort of does. Outside of Skyward Sword, it was school.
The layabout.
Twilight
He finally got a job.
Yeah, I love that he was called the layabout, by the way. By the guys. Like, there is no future in that, by the way. And then he's also talking to the guy who will eventually save that world. But then it becomes a quick reunion tour where it's like, hey, go off to Hyrule Castle. That's where he went. And you get there, it's like, nope, he's not here. Go to Sanctuary. And it just felt like it felt very deliberate. It was a way to remind you, if you played Link to the Past, hey, you remember all these things. Why don't you look at how they are right now? And why don't you see that? And I have some criticism that I want to share later because I'm not entirely sure how or whether they took advantage of the idea of the passage of time and what has happened to that land of Hyrule in the unnumbered amount of years that have passed since A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. I feel like maybe they don't capitalize on that enough.
I didn't really feel that either, like, or sort of just like, hey, this tree got older or this area is more run down. It just sort of felt like that fuzzy memory you have of this game is reappropriated now in this fuzzy memory version of this new world that you remember.
Or they added context to things that were kind of funny. Like you mentioned the Zora Queen earlier, or just the Zora area. I love how, I mean, this is jumping forward a little, but it doesn't hurt to mention it. The Zora Queen is like, hey, so, I'm the queen, but no one listens to me, so if they attack you,
they still attack you, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Which was the question we had in Link to the Past. Like, they just give me freaking flippers, and I'm swimming around, and they're attacking me. What the hell?
Yeah.
Like, I got those from your queen.
There was funny little context, things like that. But I love how you do end up in that first dungeon in 5 minutes, right? You see what happens. Ceres gets attacked. You don't know what happened inside of the sanctuary. You then get the, sort of the mandate, hey, jump in, do something. You have a sword on you, and you sort of fall into this adventure. And I really like that.
Yeah, that sanctuary probably needs a new name, because that is anything but. Only bad things have happened there twice now, like over how many years or whatever. Like,
well, I'm sure 2 bad things have happened here at IGN over the past few decades.
They're never documented. I'm sure there's some great, Zora weddings that happen there and stuff like that, but we never see those things. Yeah, exactly.
DLC.
So then you're sort of in it, and you find out who Yuga is. And so what did you guys think of Yuga? The way Yuga presents himself, I love that he's super arrogant. I love that he's obsessed with paintings, and there's sort of a play on the Japanese name Yuga and the word paintings. I think Garrett can give us a little more insight on that. But I loved his personality, because he was a villain that sort of had some, I mean, don't get me wrong, the sort of feminine quality he also had was a little weird. Like, there's an androgynous quality that just you see in some Japanese villains, and you're like, well,
they had that with the last game too.
With Skyward Sword.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But I honestly, I wish it had been Shenandoah. I wish it had been a female Ganondorf.
Shenandoah?
Right?
I like that.
That was the one regret I had, where I was like,
sounds like Shannon Doherty.
As you play the game, you realize, this is kind of the same type of villain again. Though.
Yeah,
it's like almost like young Ganondorf as the Prince of Thieves,
and then he kicks Link while he's down. Like, that was really funny. Like, get out of my way. Like,
I think there's like the 2 types of like kind of old school cartoon archetypes in villains. There's like the big fat brute guys, but there's always like the sneaky, weaselly, skinny, tall, lanky guys. And Nintendo's been kind of hitting on those with the last few Zelda. Yeah, like Jose. Greg and Jose. Perfect. You got Brutus from Popeye, and then you got the weasels from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Stop laughing, Jose.
I love it. Very nice.
So they kind of hit on that, and I appreciate that, because then you do get the Ganon version eventually, right? And you do get the Brutus and the other one. So I like that. I like that. this sort of more delicate, lanky approach to this villain, and the fact that he was just, it makes him more like, I'm not really about getting power and everything like that, and more just like, I like paintings and I'm crazy. And like, what's wrong with this guy?
Get that magic wand away from Jesus.
But he does drop a reference in Her Majesty Will Be Pleased that you can totally miss, like in that opening scene in the sanctuary. And if you don't pick it up, you're like, well, you don't fall into what the story will be later. But then, from there, I also like that Yuga sings. It was something Aonuma told me when I interviewed him, and I'm like, why the hell would he sing? But he's singing his own song about himself. Yeah. Because that's his theme, right? Yuga's theme has sort of a chorus to it. So I thought that was really cute. But then...
It's branding.
She's printed out there.
Yeah, I thought the painting thing was cool. Oh, but overall, I thought he was like forgetful. It was like, by the time he shouts up at the end, like, oh yeah, you again. Let's go.
I'm still waiting for that one villain. Majora's Mask was obviously different, who has like different aspirations. It's not just, I want to turn the world dark because that's awesome, right? Like, maybe somebody actually wants something.
But he had more intentions than that. I mean, at least they show that later on, but I do agree with your point, that he is sort of a cartoon character.
It's always world domination and mayhem, right? And it's like, of course, that's what drives me, too. Yeah. But no, I just wish there was something a little different, where it wasn't just, and obviously this plays into the kind of the Zelda canon of Demise being reborn, Ganon coming back all the time, right? Like
rolling
the hero
and
the bad guy kind of thing plays into it. But I wish there was a little bit more to it.
See, had they played up on the painting thing a little more, where he was just like, I just want to turn the world into paintings, and you'd be like, oh my God, this guy's out of his damn mind. Yeah. If he wanted to turn every living thing into a painting because he wanted the world to be his own gallery, then that's like a Saw villain,
like the collector,
right? Yeah, that's great. Yeah. But I mean, that's a little dark.
But I mean, like the same thing with like the Princess of Lorule. I mean, I know I'm jumping ahead, but I mean, her motivation was interesting. I thought when we got there, like first off, like when they kept doing the cutaways back to her talking to the princess, I'm like, you are a creepy, you are bad, you are a bad person.
The red eyes and everything. It's like, whoa, hold on.
Hey. But then like, Barbie. The only way to save my world is to destroy yours and stuff. That was cool.
I thought it was kind of hot that there was like a dark Zelda somewhere out there.
Yeah. The Legend of Hilda.
Don't just let that sit there in the air. Somebody has to save that for me real quick.
No, it's corrupted already.
She looks like she's 9 years old.
Yeah. Zelda's not 9 years old. She's like a teenage... Forget it. Keep it going.
I mean, their life expectancy is only probably 25, Brian.
How do you know that?
Dark.
I mean, it's medieval times.
Oh.
So they have potions.
From that point, though, you do end up at the position where you have to go back to Hyrule Castle, but you can also just go anywhere you want at that point, right? You can go over to Kakariko Village. You can go back to the blacksmith's house. You find out Gully likes to hang out in the little forest, sort of like, what is that, an Algrove or whatever?
The clearing,
Yeah, exactly. The clearing where Gully hangs out, and he looks just like the kid from A Link to the Past who turned into a stump. And that's when you start seeing these sort of visual references to A Link to the Past, I feel, a lot more from that point on. You might notice Irene fly by, a witch, on a broom. Like, the world is a bit dynamic, but it also felt a little static. But it was cool to see those touches here and there, right? The nods.
I was expecting there to be more than just a nod, but more of a tie-in, right? Yeah. Like, I was looking for them, like, oh my God, that's the kid who gets turned into a root, and then his mom or whatever is saying, oh, we can't find him. Can you find him? I'm like, crap, lady, he's going to be turned into a root. And then
like,
it doesn't happen,
well,
right?
They go, you know how we're going to honor that kid?
Yeah.
A baseball diamond.
Yeah, that's right.
What the hell?
Baseball diamond.
No, we will get to that.
But there are other things like that where you talk to Dampy, the grave digger, and then you talk to him again in the Dark World, and what he says almost makes it sound like the Dark World is actually the future, like it's like Back to the Future, like alternative 1980s or something. But it isn't actually, right? It's just a parallel world. So I was constantly looking for that. I thought, oh, maybe there's more to this story.
Well, and the second Gully went missing, I was like, this kid is Skull Kid. This is the kid from Majora's Mask, the dark kid who wants to end the world because he hated it that much. I was convinced. I was like, if that ends up this way, that would be so amazing. And I guess that's the problem going in as maybe a Zelda fan, is you wanted to find these tie-ins or these sort of connections. And it doesn't help that Aonuma was talking about a lot of them before the game came out, especially the Majora's Mask connection.
Which in hindsight was just him saying there's the mask on the wall, and that's it, right?
And you see it from the start of the game. It's there. But, there are other references perhaps sort of embedded in there, like the milk bar. But, we will get to those. So you get to Hyrule Castle, right? The paintings. What did you guys think of that? That was sort of the mechanic that I feel they intended to tie, not a mechanic, but a way to tie the stories together, where they have this tribute hall to the last hero and the noble things he did.
See, again, I love that because it helped the pacing of everything. Instead, like the old Zelda games were just kind of like, here, they'll play this flute noise, and there's this like scrolling wall thing. You're like, That's cool. And then there was a king in thousands of years, and you're like, all right, can I hit A? Please? I just want to. But this was just like, here's a gallery of some stuff that happened a couple years ago. So read about it or don't. Walk upstairs. Okay, goodbye. Go kill people. Yeah, it was so quick, and it's just like the game was really fast. It's really fast moving.
Cool,
so to kind of jump into that and be like, wow, there's all this cool stuff I can learn about, or not. Goodbye.
Yeah, the game's so streamlined. That's why I think it's so much fun to play, right? And just the way of like even the items this time around. You know what I mean? Like your inventory, just like, all right, no bomb bag, no wallets, just go.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It was as if the shopkeepers of Hyrule said, you know what? Screw freaking bomb bags.
Yeah.
Just take them. Here's a magic meter that lets you toss as many bombs as you want.
That may have made the game a little too easy, though, in some respects as well. I mean, it does sort of kind of dial down the RPG approach or just having to keep track of inventory. There is sort of a bummer when you're about to fight a boss, you need bombs or you need arrows, and you're like, well, crap, I don't have any. Like, I'm actually going through that with Majora's Mask, where I'm playing at a certain point, and every time you reset time in that world, you lose all your arrows. And I'm like, well, I need arrows right now, so where am I going to get them?
But I mean, I like that, because it's sort of like, like it took away this false sense of surprise that all the dungeons in Zelda games always have, which is sort of like if I was a kid growing up and my parents like, what are you gonna get for Christmas? And I'm like, I hope it's really this thing. And there was clues all over my house for a month straight about what it was gonna be.
When are your parents the Riddler or something?
No,
do they leave like marks?
Yeah, hypothetically, and then I get it, and I'm like, well, thanks. I knew I was getting an NES because you left pictures of it anywhere. Like if I walked into a Zelda dungeon and for 40 minutes I'm just seeing like hookshot hooks everywhere, and finally they're like, da-na-na-na.
So,
thanks.
But that's why this worked, right? This is because we have, the game almost says, Link to the Past.
Yeah.
You're coming back. Therefore, that when you cut down a bush or whatever, you get rupees. So it doesn't require you to kind of learn the language of the game. They're just like, oh yeah, those are hookshot targets. If you want one, just go rent one, right? Like, I actually think that's really cool.
Yeah, me too. And I really like that because Jose and I went back and forth on this a lot about whether the nostalgia of Link to the Past was helping or hurting it. And as I was playing it, I never really do this, but as I was playing it, I was looking at it in two worlds, where I was like, there's
between minds.
Yeah. There's me and my friends at work who love Zelda, and the IGN commenters who are crazy for Zelda, and they played every one. And there are people that bought a 3DS for the first time this year, and it's their first video game system ever. Yeah. And they're like, what's this Zelda thing I've heard about for so long? And they get to play it, and this is their first Zelda game. And that doesn't mean it's my baby's first Zelda game, but it means that they can go into this experience without the sort of the passion and the weight of having played...
baggage.
The baggage of playing every other Zelda game. Point. And with that is the good of being like, man, I get that reference. But there's also like, you changed it, you made it different. It's two the same. For somebody who's playing Zelda for the first time, like, I can't imagine how wonderful of an experience it is.
Man. And you know what? You'll see those the big rocks, for example, and you don't know that you'll be able to lift them. Yeah. Right? And so, when I was playing the game, I'm like, man, there's a freaking Mayamide underneath one of those things. Where's the Titan's Glove, right? So... And I was constantly hunting for this item to help me lift the rocks. Whereas like some other player, it's like this aha moment when they pick up the thing and they're like, oh my god, I can go everywhere in the world now and open those things.
Well, I mean that's the moment like that'll be for you remember those from your Zelda, right? Like I was talking to Jose today. I beat it on the way to work today because it died on both flights back and forth to Japan. And like I get to the whatever phase of the boss battle at the very end of the game, and he throws the bubble at me. And I'm like, okay, boom, back at him. Yeah. But I remember when Ocarina of Time was my first Zelda as a Sega kid, and I came to school the next day, and I'm talking to my best friend, and I'm like, I don't know how to beat Ganon.
I keep running from that thing.
I don't know. He's like, hit it back at him, you idiot. I'm like, how would I ever know that? How would I ever know that?
That's so funny you mentioned that, because I had that part did not hurt me at all during the boss fight, because I had that instant muscle memory.
Yeah, you know what to do.
I was like, boom, boom, boom.
Then he does too, though.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
that shook it up for me. But I think had I been playing this for the first time, I would have been running away. Like,
totally. No,
oh my god, don't hit me.
Yeah, I also think what's really cool is like after you encounter Yuga for the second time and you have that boss fight, first of all, you sort of get mandated, hey, you got to get these pendants of virtue. You get one from Zelda right away. You know what it is, but no one in the game knows what it is, so it's kind of a cute reference. If you know Zelda, that's one of the perks, I guess, of the baggage. But then after that, you get the ability of the bracelet, right? And the bracelet's ability to meld into the wall, because Yuga trapped Link there, and they have you initiate getting out, which I thought was also a really smart, like, hands-free tutorial. It's like, press A to get out of this horrible predicament, and you press A, and he's like, he comes out of the wall and drops to the ground. I thought it was very, like, wisely implemented, but also, I love that once you got that bracelet, the natural boundaries of a Link to the Past, the big boulders, for example, or the sort of the high up chasms that you just can't pass. You could just get on a wall and you'll get right around them. And so the old boundaries just melted away at that
I know,
point.
and
You get to have those aha moments.
there was a couple. There's a couple scenes in the game where there's like a prison, and I just imagine the prison guard being like, "God damn it! What are we supposed to do? We can't design a prison around this guy that can turn into a piece of paper and slide through the wall." It's like,
And like it just added this great element. You walked into a dungeon, and first of all, the music was always a throwback to that dungeon in A Link to the Past. So you're like, oh my god, I remember that
drip,
music,
drip.
right? Yeah, the drip one.
Yeah.
And then you see the entry hall, and you're like, oh, it's exactly the same. And then you realize that you take a step forward, you can actually make yourself flat, and like all these different things happen where like moving platforms let you cross if you're attached to the wall. And
I mean, like for me, there was the moment of when I was trying to get up to the Zora Kingdom or whatever, and like, he's like, the bridge got blown out, and I'm like, gosh darn it, I need a hook shot. When am I going to get a hook shot? I'm running around trying to get hook shots, and finally I came back, I'm like, what do I do? And I actually used I was like, what does this hint ghost do? It's basically like, get on the wall. I'm like, oh god, I forgot what game. All right,
that was the thing. I kept forgetting. Like there were times where my brain kept going like, hey, I'm playing an old Zelda game. It's like, oh wait a minute, I can bend my understanding of physics and turn into a wall drawing and travel across this.
And that was so much fun. Like, you see a heart piece, like, when am I ever going to, wait a second, you trace the wall back, like, all right, I got it.
And I loved it had that meter where you ran out, you're like, dun 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 dun, and it made that, like, the music always sounded, totally strange. I was like, I hope I can make it. And you'd be like, and you'd get there and you get a heart.
It's a cool little touch and a great effect.
They play with that, with your expectations too, with the boss fights. There's that one boss he's kind of wearing like a death shroud and he has a shield and his head comes off, right?
Yeah, the one
I
at
remember
Thieves'
him from Link to the Past too.
Yeah.
I think you lead the blind girl around or whatever, right?
Yeah,
like,
she turns into that thing.
That's what it was. But like with that one, I keep hitting him. I remember just being able to hit this guy. Like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, oh my god, his shield is flat. And you're like, whoop, go on the shield. You're like, brilliant.
That was actually,
so
to me, that was one of the fun. I laughed out loud after that fight. That was one of the funniest moments in a video game I've played in years, where you go through that huge battle and you're fighting this guy with a sword and a shield and you kill him and you knock him down and the girl's like, oh, what did you need, that thing? Oh, I have it locked in this shed. It's in this shed outside. I'm sorry, here's a key. We didn't have to do any of those things you just did. I'm like, I was in this whole thing with you. I had to fight all these people. And it's just like, it's in my lawn shed. It's in an outhouse.
That boss fight was awesome.
Yeah.
And I really wish we would have seen more of that. Like, I didn't feel like I really needed to use the
It felt like they kept recycling a lot of the older bosses too, when we get to that portion. But yeah, once you got to Lorule and that's sort of, I guess, one of my criticisms against the game is just the structure of A Link to the Past. I feel, you preserve the world, but did you really have to stick that closely to 3 Pendants of Virtue, a Master Sword, 7 Sages again, like 7 dungeons again? I get that there are a lot of thematic crossover, and maybe that's what they're going for. But at the same time, I'm like, guys, like I want something a bit more than that.
To me, it's like the birthday party is not about the cake. Right, it's about the.
Yes, it is about the cake.
No, it's about the people
you don't
at the
bring
party.
a terrible cake to my birthday.
Yeah, I don't care about that. I've had terrible cakes at great parties, but it's about the hours before that. Like to me, you beat a temple, and you're like, man, this is awesome. And whatever shiny rock comes up and spins in the air, how many you get, it doesn't matter to me. I was like, the solving the puzzles in the temples in that game is the rewarding part, not the prize.
I believe it was Miley Cyrus who says,
"Oh God,
it's about the climb."
See,
that's what it's all about.
So
exactly.
That you and I, our opinions differ on that. I went into this game thinking this is the remake we've always asked for, and we always get great remakes on all platforms,
did we ask
right?
for a remake to A Link to the Past? The way
I wanted to see A Link to the Past again modernized, so more people would actuuld discover how awesome of a game it is, right?
So did Miyamoto.
And so they could have done it. They could have done exactly what they did with Star Fox or Ocarina of Time. We would have been fine. But I feel like this is the game that answered all our questions where we said, oh, how cool would it have been if they added an extra dungeon that they originally cut or something, right? They took the original game and it was very similar in spirit, but then they mixed all these different things up. It was like Uda Zelda or whatever, like Master Quest, but then taken to the max where the story was new too. I just thought it was so cool.
And that's really cool you say that because I was always a fan of like this.
Jose does not agree.
I was always a fan of the Second Quest, Master Quest stuff, and I love that. Like, and to me, there's a remake of Old Boy in theaters right now. It's one of my favorite movies. But
the remake?
Yeah, no, not the remake. But the remake is basically shot for shot, and it's completely unnecessary. And I think
slavishly so.
To me, and I think like Link to the Past is still there. you have plenty of ways to play it. And like Ocarina of Time, I appreciated what they did with the new textures, and they added a second quest and stuff like that. And it's great for a new generation. But like, I never really felt like this is destroying my memories of A Link to the Past. I only felt like it was adding to them.
Yeah, and these criticisms, to be fair, the more I play this game, the more I enjoy it, which is why, again, I never finished the Zelda 2.5 times. Like, I think I've stopped at 2, and I want to keep going. I want to see what else I can get out of this, which is weird because I kind of already know. But the whole, I don't know, I'm not convinced that structure feels like a security blanket to me. It feels like, hey, we're making a lot of radical changes. Here's A Link to the Past just so you feel better. And that wasn't the case, to be fair. If you read the Iwata Ask that went up for this game, where they talked to a bunch of the designers, as Nintendo is prone to do, they bring up why A Link to the Past got introduced into this cycle, where it started out as a sequel or just its own game, and then it was Miyamoto's suggestion, hey, why don't you guys just remake A Link to the Past? Doing layered sprites and stuff, that'd be cool. But Aonuma's response to that is, well, if we just did that, it would just be that. It would be the original game. So I see the arguments on both sides. I definitely get where you're coming from. I just felt there was something unfulfilled there that I wanted, and that structure kind of was both a good and bad thing to me.
See, I feel like there are few games that I would call perfect. Like, there's Super Metroid and there's A Link to the Past for sure. And A Link to the Past, I felt like taking that framework actually, I think, gave the team the confidence to break up some of the things and remove the item progression and the kind of linear setup and all that. I think because they had a proven formula, tried and proven, an awesome game to build off of, is allowed them to innovate like
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
This is how I'd want to see the remake or the formula done. You know what I mean? Because like, for me, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, I started up and I'm just like, this again? Like, okay. Where's the wood sword?
Stick with it. It's good. They're both great games.
No, they have their moments. Absolutely. I agree with
it. It just takes so long to get to them.
But and they can test your patience, right? Because as a returning player, you're like, I know I'm going to get the sword, and I already know how to use it, so don't make me learn it. But of course, the designers think of all the people who haven't played a game like that, to whom that kind of slow ramp up is actually getting them to grips with the controls.
I'd rather see them experiment like this on a handheld, right, where you only have a few minutes to play, most people, right?
Yeah.
You jump in, you get what you want, you get out, and then see a complete redo on the console of like, blow everything up. Let's not have it be the exact same formula. Tool around the formula here.
And it's a big win for them how accessible this game is, right? I would recommend this as someone's first Zelda as much as I would recommend a fan to pick this game up.
Totally.
I'll give you a good example.
Too.
I'll give you a good example of brilliant game design in this one is the temple where you turn off the lanterns in order to see the path. The way they introduce it, they put a freaking skull next to a flame.
And you swing at it.
And so you want to get the skull, you hit it, and then you put out the flame by accident. You're like, holy crap, there's the path, right? Like, they design the game in a way where you stumble upon the secret. You feel really smart for doing it, but it's all there. They're all
the invisible walls become visible. Like, when does that happen in
But
a
they never
game
tell
ever?
you. They never tell you, turn off the lights. They make you do it in some smart
I thought
way.
that temple was a damn nightmare.
It was really good.
That was I had fun with it, and it was rewarding to finish it, but it was such a struggle. Like, it was hell.
Really?
When I walked in, it was my final temple.
Yeah.
And so I went in there, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. And then in the end, I felt like it was too simple for me. I wanted to see him do more with it. Whereas like my favorite one was the sand one.
Sand
pillars and do it.
Crazy
Like,
good.
this is awesome.
Was that
because
everybody?
It incorporates both. I was going to ask that question actually. What's your favorite dungeon? So Greg has positioned his. Yeah. What about you two?
Yeah, desert for sure.
Yeah, either desert or I really enjoyed Turtle Rock. I thought that was really cool.
That was cool too.
Just because I tried it first when I first got to Lorule and I had 3 hearts and I died immediately. I only died 3 times playing the whole game and I was like, man, that's tough. And then I went out into the world and I got more hearts and more items and I came back and I beat it and it was like, that was that classic like 8-year-old Brian Altano playing Zelda for the first time. I was like, I'm not ready for this dungeon. I want to come back with all of my items, and now I beat it, and like it was so rewarding to me.
Yeah, and Turtle Rock's kind of a trap because that was also my first dungeon in Lorule. Like I got there and
because it's right next to your house.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, this should be. And and they do the thing where Lorule and Hyrule. Oh God, Lorule and Hyrule have these gaps where you can't access every place in Lorule unless you use Hyrule as the gate to kind of get through some of those places. So you think, oh, Turtle Rock, and I'm like, sure, this should be interesting. I died like 5 times on the temple, mostly because of the nasty jerk turtle boss that's at the end.
Oh yeah, he's awful.
Who can snap out across the entire plane or whatever just to take a bite at you.
The temple's right by your house.
And then I learned you put an ice rod on one of those pillars. If he bites
and he smashes into it,
yeah, he's stunned and knocked out.
But
so
I mean, even to get into it, you're walking around Lorule and you're like, all right, this is cool. It's kind of different. And this turtle comes up to you and is like, hey, I lost my babies. Help me. And you're like, all right.
Yeah.
Well, this should be a nice, easy, benign way to start my adventure. Like, no. This is horrible. This is hell.
We thought turtles slow.
Yeah, exactly. And no, it's a very hard level.
Yeah, my favorite dungeon was almost Turtle Rock, by the way, just because there was a lot of hidden stuff there. And you do start to notice when you get to Lorule that you can just rake in the rupees if you just pay a little bit of attention, right? I played the Desert Palace again last night.
Yeah.
I walked out with like 3 or 4 silver rupees. I was just like money bags, dude.
Yeah.
And it almost felt like as much as, and we haven't talked about the item shop, by the way, like not much or in detail, the idea of renting all of these items from the start and doing whatever you want, and then losing them if you die in battle, as long as they were rentals. But it felt like the amount of money that is thrown at you in this game both helps and hurts this game as well.
You get too much, but I mean, I will make the one argument for this game is that the playing difficulty adjusts to how you play, because you die and you're like, man, I need to go get some heart containers first, right?
I'm stubborn.
You don't have to do
there.
that.
Yeah,
you have
totally.
to. You can try and power through, and you can not buy items if you don't want to. But yeah, I feel like they gave you too much money. It was too tempting to just buy everything, right?
Yeah, I'm actually...
Because the renting mechanic was brilliant. Like,
it was really good.
Death became more meaningful because you lost things that you really wanted.
How many times
right?
did you die? Like, I was in the same thing where outside of the final boss, I've died once.
But you did the tour too, right? Where you collected lots of hearts and stuff.
I was stubborn. I'm taking this turtle, and I lost like 5 lives to it.
And I agree. Like I think for more accomplished players, they could have made it tougher by like holding back on some of that stuff.
I mean, I'm glad they didn't, but it was one of those things of like,
Well,
I bought one thing, I rented everything else, and it never.
Oh, you never bought the other things?
No.
Wow, really?
I bought everything.
Yeah, me too. Like, I mean,
everything
I really like that system because it rewarded you with ownership because it means you couldn't lose it in battle. And also, once you owned it, you could upgrade it, which is really cool.
What do you? I didn't even know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man, okay,
I'll
so...
take it to the mother my. The most irresponsible parent in video games, by the way.
You lost 100 babies.
I've lost them between worlds. They're just everywhere.
How does she... She's like, all right, my. I said, oh, God, there's one in the tree. I lost one in the river. All right, what do we... Oh, there's 12 left. Lost those 2.
Why'd you trap me in this cave?
If you had 8 arms and 100 kids, you'd lose some.
No, she doesn't have 8 arms. She has like 6 or 5 or something like that. But where is Father My, by the way? I checked.
Oh, he skipped town, man.
Yeah,
He's gone.
Yeah, like most.
He's on the... What? There's 100 kids? All right, I'm changing my cell phone number. Don't do that, by the way.
I do acknowledge, though, they were kind of trapped, right? With this whole... When money becomes the most important thing, and you're kind of trying to play an economy of sorts in this game, it's unfortunate because if you don't give them enough money, they're grinding for rupees and they're getting annoyed. At least the player is.
Yeah.
If you give them too much, you end up like maybe like me, who's complaining about it a little bit. But at the same time, I do like what the item shop brought to this game.
Yeah,
me too. At the end,
Para kind of hinted at it, but I'm really excited to see where like the sort of speedrun community goes with this game.
Oh, I can't wait.
Because like in terms of like you can bypass entire areas without certain items, and I want to see what somebody can do just on 3 hearts with just the boomerang or just this. I mean, you have that option of only picking and choosing certain items for certain areas in the game, whereas the old Zeldas you were sort of forced to take something and move forward with it. So I mean, like I really think like a lot of cool stuff's going to happen from that community over the next few years.
I encountered a lot of spots where I saw a crack in the wall. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to have the bombs, but then they had like a bomb enemy walking around. Like there were often solutions to puzzles where you didn't have to have the item.
There was really cool workarounds for stuff like that. So
and that was probably the other like just slight flaw to this was that a lot of the dungeons, because of this system, a lot of the dungeons turned into the one-item dungeon, which I feel like as much as people will rail on Skyward Sword for its narrative and pacing issues, I felt like they did finally stray away from the one-item dungeon. You were using everything in some of those
Twilight
dungeons.
Princess did it too, where you felt a lot like you were switching through your wheel and being like, I have this thing, this thing, this
But
thing.
is that fun? I would argue that switching items is not that fun. Like I like it when
item slots, it would be
I know,
fun.
but I'm fine with like 2 item slots. Sounds great. Like I don't want to have to go to a wheel and
It's a
constantly
thin
go
line.
like,
Did anybody-
I need the spinning
Exactly,
top
yeah.
now. I need.
Did anybody use that quick switching
I did.
item?
Oh yeah, I used it all the time.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I never did.
It made a cool sound.
I don't
Kind
know.
of Dark Souls in its nature because you don't pause the game and you're
Exactly,
switching
yeah.
items really fast. Oh, God.
Yeah, I'm just so old school Zelda, and I think with I played Link's Awakening like once a year ever since I got it. It's my favorite handheld Zelda, possibly until this one. That's the sort of the debate I'm having right now. Is what's my favorite portable Zelda ever? It's those 2 and Minish Cap, obviously, and then the Oracle games. But I was always so used to hitting start and going and loading up the item, and so that's kind of what I stuck with doing in this game.
You quit? You turned the game off?
No, I didn't quit. I would hit pause. I'd pick a different item, drag it over, put it back. Everybody else is using the quick wheel and stuff like that. I'm just such an old man when it comes to that stuff.
It worked really well. I mean, they did a really nice job with interface in general, right? Like you just kind of forgot about it.
I love the consequences of death, just, to kind of finish that point. I think it was really smart, right? Ski Row comes, takes your items, you're like, wait! You almost consider turning the game off, because you're like, I don't want to be stuck with this.
Well, the only time, the time I died before the final boss, and then the 2 times I did there, I just quit out.
You're like, I don't want to die anymore.
Load my save.
Well, it was like Majora's Mask. You can't buy an item when you're dipping into those funds to rent them again.
No, I thought that worked out really well. I thought the item shop idea was really, really cool. I mean, the nerve of that guy to take over your house, by the way.
I mean, even you didn't buy anything, but once you buy everything, he's like, yeah, it's cool if I just kind of live here.
He's all like, hey,
get out of my house.
He's lying around,
It's kind of his house.
And then he had a head in that bag, right?
Yeah, of course. But it's like, dude, I gave you all my money. You gonna pay rent?
So they had these little things in there, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the little touches in the game too, right? Like you can walk up to his bag of money. He's like, "Oh, there's something in there more important than life itself," right? He freaks out.
So you can't touch the bag of money.
No, he's
probably money. There's a rupee on the bag.
No, that guy really loved. Remember,
not a very smart criminal.
Remember, he was a coward and he was lazy and he just loved money.
He's got a labeling machine at home.
But it has all these little touches. Like for example, the leaf that lets you spin up in the air and fly. I forgot what it's called. But like if you're next to one of the bird weather vane things, like you do it, they spin. Did you notice the weird Cyclops enemy guys when you meet them up in the mountains? They wear little sweaters.
Oh my God!
Really cute.
So when they're in the cold, they actually have sweaters on.
I thought that leaf item was sort of criminally underused. It didn't really feel like there was ever a reason.
Shadow Link.
Yeah,
Shadow Link can't do anything against it. Like you just anytime Shadow Link gets close, you use that thing, you get stunned, you hit him.
Oh wow! Strategy.
Shouldn't have told you guys.
Man,
I'm coming for your bounty. Which, by the way. Awesome.
Yeah.
God, I loved that. It was like
StreetPass links?
StreetPass and like crazy in Japan, and then I'd see it light up because it's rare that somebody over there had the game. And I was like, boom, immediately to it, go, and I was already like such a high level. I just dominated everybody. I'm unlocking all these achievements. I'm like, yeah.
Somewhere in Japan, like a guy sitting in his living room going, Mira!
What's beyond?
And it was really cool to have that Zelda 2 music as well in there, right? I mean,
the music in general in this game was unbelievable. I mean, it's like we were actually talking about this a little while back about how handheld gaming is sort of killing video game music because a lot of times you're playing it on the bus or on the train. You don't have headphones on or the volume's down and you're sort of looking at other things. But this game, I always had headphones in. I always had the volume up, always had the 3D slider up, and I was just always immersed in listening to it. And you have that milk bar with those like
the Zelda
hippies in the corner. They're
you want us to play you a song?
And you could sit there for hours and just listen to them do covers of old Zelda music, and it's so cool to just like. I just had it on. I was like watching TV, and I was like, "Oh man, these guys have been playing for a while."
They use really nice samples for everything too. I mean, just the quality of the sounds was just really nice. All the different songs were redone really well. That My song is awesome.
One of the best songs.
My.
Yeah, it's really cute. Also, their execution on when they would pull, sort of a Zelda song out of the hat or whatever, right?
So the ending
was really great. Even in the ending, where when you are, battling Yuga. And the princess from the painting presents you with the light bow, which is now an item that you have to use as a painting because she's trapped as a painting. Like it sort of logically makes some kind of sense. I love how they dip into the Zelda's lullaby and you get goosebumps at that point. At least I did. I was like, wow. And then you go into that fight going, okay, it's on pretty much.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That last fight plays out and how the bow played into it.
Yeah. I wish they'd done more of that. We were talking about this earlier. I wish there would have been more paint fighting.
Pop out of a wall, just shoulder check.
They wanted it to be special, right?
Like, it works. It does work.
And so if you haven't finished the game and you're still here, you're listening to the ending. We obviously already spoiled it for you, but you fight Yuga, who then
Ganon Yuga.
Well, Ganon Yuga, like this giant pig version of Yuga, and then. obviously it turns out that Princess Hilda was not on your side the whole time. Yeah. But then you fight him as a painting. Like, you actually vanquish him, he becomes a flat painting, he runs around in the circular room, and you have to plop into the wall as well and shoot him with the arrow. And
that was one of my favorite parts of that
fight. At first you shoot him from the front, and he's like, he's trying to hold it back, and then you hit him from the back by popping off, right? Yeah. He's like, and then, they repeat that, and then the final shot is basically, you try to shoot him from the front and nothing happens.
Yeah, he's not blocking him anymore. Yeah. I was down to like a heart and a half, and I'm like, I will lose my mind.
Me too. I got so mad at that part. I didn't know what to do.
And so like I'm moving him forward, and he'll back off. And so I'm like, there's like that one panel. I'm going to get him in there, and something's going to happen. I get him there, nothing. I'm like, I'll get close to him. You get dodge out of the wall.
I did the exact same thing as Greg.
It's totally like, there was an old MacGyver episode, I remember. But anyway,
oh my God. But this is where you lose me.
It was totally, wait, is this as easy as and you turn around and you shoot, and it goes,
yeah, and it is.
It's like the guy who's like, I'm locked in this room, and then he never tried to open the door.
Exactly.
Like, it's one of those.
Yeah, similar to the MacGyver episode I'm thinking of.
But to me, that was the moment. Like, just kind of like, you shoot into the other direction, and it doesn't just shoot the arrow, it goes into a cutscene of following the arrow, and you're like, oh man, that is so freaking
See, and I'm totally with Greg, where I love this mechanic, and I wish they used it for more than just exploration. Like, in more boss fights, I think would have been fantastic. I want to see them do what Portal 2 did with Portal 1 in terms of like, I hope they take this mechanic and they bring it back for another game. And it doesn't have to be a Link to the Past 3 or a Link Between Worlds 2 or whatever they want to call it. Just try that 2D to 3D thing, because I think we've been playing 2D and 3D games for so long, and they played with it a little bit with like Paper Mario and stuff like that. Yeah. But to see them do this, like, it's just like, that's what I love about Nintendo is they take this like incredible new game mechanic and they just kind of throw it into like something familiar like Zelda. Instead of building a whole new IP out of it, they go, well, you love Zelda. Well, now he can do this thing. You're like, wait a minute, that's my childhood and my adulthood like turning on its side. Yeah. So I hope they take that and they turn it into more, more puzzles, more boss fights.
And they didn't wear it out. I love that about it. Yeah. They didn't. Every puzzle that it involved turning into a painting and going flat was so well executed. It was something where I'd be like, oh wow, that's really clever. And I don't know, we kind of didn't talk about if you got stuck on any puzzles as well, because I found I got stuck like 2 or 3 times.
I did,
I'd just be like, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do here. But I love that, again, any tutorializing by them was completely optional. You'd put on, the funny glasses you got from the fortune teller, and then you would find a hint ghost who you would give him 1 play coin, and he would say, I'm consulting my notes.
I really appreciated those tombs, I called them. They were like sort of like what from like Tomb Raider, where it was just like
the
small puzzle pits.
Yeah, it was a small. Yeah,
it's like and the treasure hunters there.
Yeah,
like, if I could only glide through the air.
There'd be like this tiny one-off cave, and there'd be this guy, and he'd be like, "I've been trying to get that damn thing for like 20 years, man. Please get it for me."
Wait, like, all right. We have not talked about the Bomb Shop Man, which is one of my favorite characters.
The Bomb Shop guy.
Yeah, he's rapping while you're talking to him, and your responses are part of the rap. It was great. I don't know. Maybe this is the New Yorker and me talking.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I like it. I liked it a lot.
Like little things like that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we've reached the ending. I'm kind of trying to think before we dive too deep into the ending. As far as the Majora's Mask references go, we know the mask was on the wall. We know the milk bar is a reference to Majora's Mask. There was a milk bar in that. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you guys, but I kept obsessing over what is with the guys with the masks on in Lorule. What is their deal, and why can't I find out what they want? I don't know. They never really tell you what they want. So I feel like there may be a hidden secret somewhere, or this was a complete mistranslation, and this Majora's Mask thing that Aonuma kept talking about was possibly overplayed than what it was.
Yeah, I honestly think there's not some grand secret in this one. I think it's more like he put a Majora's Mask on the wall as a hint that maybe they're doing a remake of Majora's Mask. It's going to turn out to be something like that.
Yeah,
that they're going to do just a 3DS remastered version like they did with Ocarina of Time, which makes all the sense in the world.
No, the secret is intact. Yeah. No, I don't know.
Jose's going to lose his mind with his like string diagram trying to tie it all together.
It's going to turn into an episode of Heroes. Watch. You're going to see my house.
But there is the pushpin cave in his basement.
Yeah.
There could be the other thing where, the next Zelda game starts with a mask salesman arriving in Hyrule and buying that mask off Link or whatever, and then sets out for Termina or whatever, goes to the Majora's Mask realm. We don't know how those games yet connect, right? Nobody's confirmed exactly where in the timeline this game sits, Link Between Worlds. It's obviously after Link to the Past. But
Damn
Yeah, that timeline.
that timeline is weird. I don't know why.
It's weird.
never needed
It's
to be.
weird is
That's understated.
the
a
most
bit.
understated word to use for it.
Yeah.
It's convoluted as hell.
But I'm German. I crave order.
There's no
Dude,
order
really?
there.
Wait, you got no.
Well, it's not satisfying my craving for order.
Yeah, clearly
It's
it
just,
wasn't for
I
the
want
Germans.
it. No.
All right.
Well,
So
it's
the
all about
Germans
world
say no.
domination, though. All those games.
It was, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I think the possibility of a secret still being there is something that either is going to
You think
show
so?
its face or not soon. If it
What,
doesn't
in the
within the
game?
next month, then there is none.
I think
But
it's
I'm
how it
holding
ties-
out for hope.
I think how it ties into the next game. Either that or it's just a hint at a Majora's.
Yeah, and
I
I
think
think
it's
that-
really
I
just a
agree with you
nod.
there.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, we're listening to your billions of letters. I know you still
He
talk
can't
about
go-
Majora's
yeah,
Mask
he
all
can't
the
talk
time.
about any Zelda game in public without hearing Majora's Mask, Majora's Mask. Even we pulled that on him, right? We asked him this year. He said, "Tell them I laughed." You know?
Yeah.
That was his answer. I'm sticking to that. I'm like, well, aren't you weird this is going to get misinterpreted? He's like, no.
Did he laugh?
Nope.
Did he laugh like the mask?
Yeah, he said, tell them I laughed. They
mask?
went, ha, 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 ha,
Laugh.
ha. But speaking of salesmen, I mean, Ravio at the end
Jose
reveals
Way.
who he is. Ah,
Yeah.
Ravio reveals, I like that though. Ravio reveals who he is, right? And how did we feel about that?
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was
I thought,
great.
like I said, like that part of the shakeup, right? That boss battle, that storyline, that thread was really fascinating to me. You know what I mean? And when she talks, the princess starts talking about how Lorule fell and all these other
Yep,
things, and then
yep.
he comes in and he's like, "I'm a coward." I'm like, "This is
It's
awesome."
a sad story.
Yeah.
I want to play a game as him. You know, I want.
Dink?
Yeah, Lunk or something. I wasn't sure what his name was.
Ravio.
Yeah, but I want to see what his deal is. Like, I want to see like his version. Like, I know he's got low rule, but I want to play dungeons as him. I want to try his items out. Like, I wanted them to explore more of that. Like, it'd be cool if they made
It's funny you mentioned that. Dragon Quest games played around with that, where the item shop keeper, you play a game on the SNES as him going into dungeons to get items to sell to the next adventurer.
I mean, it's a
That
cool,
was
it's
his-
a cool
that was his
concept.
thing,
So.
yeah.
It would be cool if they did what they did with Mario with the little Toad levels. Maybe the next Zelda has
Captain Toad.
has the Dink levels where you go into the Dark World just to solve a puzzle to unlock something in the Light World.
Sure.
But no, I mean I liked how that unfolded. I thought the revelation wasn't as cool as I was
was hoping for
hoping.
something
Yeah, you
so
were hoping for
cool.
something else too, and that's us.
Who did you want it to be?
But we're
Not-
Picasso, man, that's the painting thing.
That would have been great, just because of the painting reference alone.
Michelangelo.
No, but it's Link in that world, and I'm like, okay, I get it. And by the way, Hilda's intentions, I felt, were also, there was some, they kind of gave it away, I felt earlier. I feel even when he revealed her at Comic-Con, like, they weren't talking about the story to this game until the Comic-Con event that happened, what was that, like September or something?
Late July,
Roughly, yeah. No, New York Comic-Con, sorry.
Oh, New York
Yeah,
Comic
yeah.
Con. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so and he brought up, or it was translated. He said something like, just like Zelda, she has her own intentions and she's thinking of her people, and her intentions being, hey, we kind of blew up our Triforce and everything went to crap.
Yeah.
So we need to fix this and let's steal theirs. Was basically their solution once they discovered there was another world. And I feel that's fine, but at the same time, I don't know. I did feel unfulfilled a little bit. I was like,
I liked it.
okay.
But I knew nothing coming in.
Yeah.
So
okay,
it was
it's
for
fair.
me. It was revealed over time. The fact of like, oh, what would you do, Princess Zelda? You're a creep. You're not a normal person.
I feel like we were overthinking it too, right?
Yeah,
like
we did.
I kept on thinking Dark Realm, is this the Dark World from Link to the Past? Is it different? Is it the future? Is it the Dark World from Twilight Princess? Is Midna in the game somewhere? Is Majora's Mask? Like, if you overthink it, then of course you're going to be left down by the revelation. But I actually did not predict that it was Bizarro Link. Did you? Did you
No,
think
I
it
didn't.
was?
That was the
I had no
last thought
idea.
in my mind.
I
I was
was like,
waiting for the
oh,
mask,
okay.
the shopkeep, the mask salesman from Majora's Mask to
Yeah.
just go, hey guys.
Yeah. By the way,
But it wasn't.
so is the bunny costume a reference to Link to the Past?
So a reader pointed that out in an email that they sent to us. They were like, hey, you know how Link turned into a pink bunny in A Link to the Past when he went to Dark World for the first time? This was obviously a nod, right? Ravio
Yes.
comes to Hyrule, but he's a purple bunny.
It's
instead.
the coward, right? Like the coward's outfit is the bunny. And,
Yeah. Not pink this time, though, but still, it worked.
White is
Pastels.
insulting. It's a
Yeah,
purple
yeah.
bunny.
No, at least it wasn't Nabbit, right? We
Yeah.
don't want to know what's
Doesn't
under
look
that
like
mask.
Nabbit, huh?
Yeah, it still does. All right. So, I mean, overall, I guess we've reached that point. Your closing thoughts on this game. Like, do you feel? It sounds like we all feel the adventure. So I may have my story gripes, but I feel like the adventure panned out.
Oh, yeah.
In a great way and unfolded exactly the way I want every Zelda game to unfold from this point on. If you're listening, Aonuma, Like seriously, I don't want to deal with the crazy tutorials at the start. I don't want to deal with all of this hand-holding.
Repeat discussions.
Or, hey, you picked up this blue rupee, and guess what? Like, the first
Still
time
worth
you
$5.
pick up... How disappointed were you, though? The first time you picked up that monster tail, and it's like, this is a monster tail, blah, 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 and you're like, oh my god,
they're going to do this every time
again?
they didn't.
And they didn't, and that was so brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like they delivered really well on this game, regardless of my story issues.
Yeah.
I feel like from start to finish, it's the game I would recommend to anyone who wants to play as Zelda.
I really think it's like that. It might be my go-to like Zelda game for somebody who's like, I don't really know anything about Zelda. I'm like,
sure.
Link Between Worlds. Start there, and if you like that, maybe try Link to the Past. Maybe try Zelda 1. Maybe try Ocarina of Time. You know, in terms of going into the 3D depths and stuff like that. But to me, like it turned out to be my favorite Zelda probably since Wind Waker, and it's I think it's in my top 3 Zeldas of all time.
Wow.
And that could jump to 5 on some days. You know how that is. It's like ranking your favorite foods in the world. It's
favorite Mario
difficult.
games.
Unless you're Greg and
That's
you say
simple.
pizza, sushi, and broccoli,
God,
right?
you suck at this.
Wings, garbage.
Wings, pizza, bagels, broccoli, and then
I don't know. I thought broccoli was 3.
That's 4. Bagels have always been a 3. Because somebody once said, what if you had a buffalo chicken pizza bagel? And I was like,
Can you put some broccoli on that?
yeah, exactly.
That's really great.
Yeah, I thought the game was just fantastic. I mean, I had multiple times I would solve a puzzle and say out loud, "That's brilliant."
Yep.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
honestly, I'm like,
totally.
oh my god, how did they come up with this? It's so smart. We didn't talk about the ice temple, but like just looking at it and how structurally it fits together, I'm like, how do you design this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I can't believe I made it through that thing.
That
you know?
escalator ride at the start
Jumping
of
off, going to the lower level,
Yep.
and then the 3D effect actually works really well
Yeah,
in that game,
yeah.
right? To tie things together. So I thought all that was really brilliant. I was happy to see a game where you're using a button to swing a sword on a handheld again. Like I felt that the tap mechanic had outstayed its welcome on the 3DS.
Yeah.
You know, and like Spirit Tracks, I was like, okay, I'm done with that now. I want a game where, like in classic Zelda games, I'm not swinging, swiping, tapping. I'm just hitting a button, and I love that. I want it to be that way.
It's funny you thought that the tap mechanic outstayed its welcome, because I felt like it was a cool mechanic. It was just trapped in a game that was extremely formulaic. They were, hey, you found the boomerang again. Hey, you found this item you've had in every Zelda again. And that's when the fatigue started to set in for myself.
Yeah, just to be sure, I really love the touch-based puzzles in the games. I love those.
Those are
but the combat was almost ruined
that's
for
fair.
me, right?
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel as turnkey, and like sometimes I wanted to walk somewhere and hit someone and I couldn't because the thing didn't swipe. So I feel like this is again one-to-one control where you really feel like you're in control of the sword. Yeah. So I love that. I love the non-linear setup. I would not begrudge anybody to make a game that's more linear again, because you can build a story much better when you know where the player is going next, right? And you can build this item progression where you upgraded something, therefore this temple is now a little bit easier. So I don't mind that. I think it's great that we had this non-linear game, and I love it for that, but it doesn't have to be like that every time.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean,
And Majora's Mask, showed you how you can completely mix up the game, do something new with a 3-day setup. Like, if they do something like that again, I'd be
There was no
I'd be very
Ganon in that
happy.
game. How cool was that? Yeah.
that's why Majora's Mask was great.
Yeah.
I mean, piggybacking off what we've all said, I loved it. Great. I'd recommend it to people too, but I'd recommend it in the same way Pear's talking about, right? In the fact that for me, the non-linear stuff here, and not having a really solid story throughout it all, right, makes so much sense on the handheld. Just go do whatever, run around, do this. Don't worry about the items, blah, blah, blah. But like it depends what I'm recommending and why, right? When I talk about it, like this one's brilliant and fun and beautiful and great and easy to get into, and a bit too easy, I thought, right? But like I'd always recommend Ocarina of Time first, because like stepping into Hyrule Field for the first time, right? You're like, this is epic. This is an amazing scope experience. I remember those boss battles so much more than I remember these, right? Like getting to the boss battles here was always just the cherry on top of like, oh, cool, run around, kill, and it's over. You know what I mean? Nobody ever made me think like, or except for the very end, which is probably why I'm always gonna remember that fight. But like the rest of them were just like, oh yeah, like, oh, the guy bounces off the walls and eating the tail. Okay, whatever.
The guy who goes boom, boom.
But yeah,
I love the sound effects, by the way. It was
They
great.
threw those in, and those weird pixelated transitions they did every now and then too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Really
Just to
awesome
add
nods.
to that, yeah.
Really great little nods.
There
So
was
good.
one more point I wanted to bring up that you guys kind of steered to, and I was like, crap, I forgot. I'm getting old, guys.
Well, they can always catch that next point on the next NVC. When's that show post?
Oh man, that posts mostly every Friday. Although I'm thinking of switching to Mondays. I think on Mondays we do better, but I'm not sure. You guys like having the show on Friday? You guys are on all the time.
Every day is equal.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
No.
Monday
Every
to
day is a
Friday.
nightmare.
Can we just do the show every day and nothing else, Dad?
No.
Oh.
Next.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess I'll save that for our next podcast then. But thank you very much for tuning in and checking out this very special episode. You can find me, Jose_Otero on Twitter. You can find Greg at
Game over, Greggy.
You can find Pear at
Pear IGN.
And you can find Brian at
Agent Bizzle.
Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next week. Well, not see you, but you'll hear us.